On today's show, we sit down with Jeff Frye, a former big leaguer, and we learn a little bit about him, and we're talking some baseball.
Welcome to another episode of the Baseball Awakening Podcast, where we dive into the raw, unfiltered, unsexy side of player development. Get ready for some knowledge bombs with your host, Jeff Rotmeyer.
Welcome to the Baseball Awakening Podcast. I'm Jeff Rotmeyer. Today I'm sitting down with Jeff Frye, who spent 9 years in the big league with the Texas Rangers, the Boston Red Sox, the Colorado Rockies, and the Toronto Blue Jays. Jeff, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know, I appreciate you coming on. Jeff, you got to spend some time in the big league, something that very few people have gotten to do. And so we're excited to kind of learn, to listen and learn from you and the experiences that you had. So let's just kind of start with Jeff, the younger player, and developing into the big leaguer.
Yeah, I mean, when I was, a little guy, I started playing Little League at 8 years old. And, that was before T-ball. We didn't have T-ball.
Yeah.
So when you're 8 years old, man, you had to pitch. There was no coach pitch or, that kind of stuff. We were right in the middle of it. And so I just loved baseball. I grew up in a baseball family and, went on to high school and started playing baseball. And then off to, I was actually moved to Panama, Oklahoma, my junior year in high school from California, and didn't know what I was going to do after high school. It's a lot different than it is now. These kids nowadays their future's already lined up. They know they're going to college after their sophomore year and stuff like that. And, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was pretty good in basketball. So one of the local junior colleges in Wilburton Eastern offered me a basketball scholarship. And that summer I played for Spyro American Legion, had a great summer playing baseball, and actually got over 2 days, got 15 hits in a row. And another junior college, Carl Albert, asked me to come to Carl Albert and play both baseball and basketball. So that's kind of how I progressed from high school. And I realized pretty quick that basketball was not going to be my future, and just really started focusing. Had never lifted weights in my life. I graduated high school at 5'5", 135 pounds, going to college to play basketball.
Yeah.
Before the 3-point line,
Right.
So I played 2 years at Carl Albert, and, I wanted to go to, D1 school, whatever, thought I did well enough. And the scouts said that, or the coaches or the college coaches said I was too slow. I was knock-kneed and duck-footed. And, so I didn't get any D1 offers. Ended up going to Southeastern in Durant, playing for 2 years, and, finished my college career and went to a Rangers tryout camp and had a great day and ended up getting drafted out of it. It's crazy. It wasn't even my invitation. It was my teammate's invitation to the tryout camp, and he didn't want to go, so I went in his place.
Nice.
So
very cool.
Happened to have a great day at the right time,
Yeah. Let's go back a bit when you you graduated at 5'5", 130 pounds. So you were obviously always a smaller guy, which is a given. We all know that you were a smaller guy in the big league. But you obviously had some athletic abilities. Where did that come from? How did you overcome the notion of being small and then ending up being a professional player?
Practice, man. I didn't have any brothers or sisters, so I had a cousin, and we played baseball every single day, whether it was a wiffle ball or a tennis ball or a rubber ball. And then when I was, at home by myself, I would go outside and I would, plug in the radio, pull the extension cord all the way out to the driveway and listen to a baseball game, usually the Giants game, and throw the ball against the wall, trying to, imitate all the plays that were happening in the game. Here's a ground ball to short, and I throw the ball, ground ball, and I throw it, and I have to throw it to this little square to get him out. And it's just, I mean, I lived that. I constantly played baseball. And then after a while, I started playing a little bit basketball too, but it was one or the other every single day of my childhood.
Nice. So let's talk practice. What does that mean? You know, aside from playing every day and imitating plays, what would your definition of practice and working hard? Because you know everybody thinks they work hard, and if you ask them to tell you what they're doing, it's kind of interesting what people considered practice and hard work. So can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think today for kids working hard is going to their lesson for an hour. You know, I never had a lesson in my life. We couldn't afford lessons. You know, I didn't know that if there was even anybody around. I grew up, I was born in '66, so there wasn't like readily available places to go work out and things like that. It was literally outside in the street, in the driveway, playing baseball. And it was from sun up to sundown. I know people, you know, a lot of people probably don't believe it, but that's what we did. We had a passion for it. And that's when I say we, I'm also talking about my cousin who was 4 years younger and the only male cousin I had. So, you know, we were together all the time. We used to play wiffle ball and Nerf baseball in the house, you know, breaking crap all the time and getting in trouble. But it's just, you know, it was just, we didn't know it. We didn't have the things that kids have now. We didn't have the technology, you know, sit in the house and play hours and hours of video games or just look at their phone all the time. And I'm glad we didn't. We didn't have those distractions, you know. So it was, you know, how are we going to entertain ourselves? Well, we're going to go outside and we're going to play baseball.
Right. Yeah. It's different times and can't fault it, but you know, just interesting. Let's jump to your high school days. What was that like? You know, the good coaching, good years. I mean, what was the high school days like?
Well, my freshman year, I went to Bishop O'Dowd High School in Oakland, California, and I came from a Catholic that I went through 5th through 8th grade called St. John's, and we didn't have baseball there, so we'd play at recess. But I played we had a basketball team that was really good. And I went to college and went to high school at Bishop O'Dowd, and I went out for basketball team. And the coach, Mike Phelps, who was a legendary coach in California, who was also the baseball coach. And so he cut me from the basketball team in 9th grade and told me to come back when I grew up, which I never forgot, you know? And so I really started practicing basketball. I played baseball my freshman year. Then I transferred to Hayward High. I did okay. I would say I was middle of the road, average, because I was still so small. My sophomore year, I was 5 foot, 100 pounds, and so I hadn't even hit puberty or anything like that, and I did pretty good. And then I moved my junior year to Panama, Oklahoma, and went out for basketball and made the team and really excelled in basketball. And then played baseball and did well. Played that summer for Spyro American Legion. And then my senior year in baseball, I hit 550 my senior year in high school, averaged 23.5 points in basketball, and also was a starter in football. So, but I was, you know, in football, I was basically trying to stay alive.
Right.
I was not winning many collisions, I can tell you that. But, you know, basketball was really my first love because, you know, I was a star of the basketball team. You know, I was probably the best player on the baseball team, but we had a good baseball team. Our basketball team was okay, but I just kind of liked the excitement of it. But, you know, I found out pretty quick in college at my height and weight that there wasn't much future in basketball for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. Your college years at Carl Albert in basketball and how that whole thing developed.
Yeah, so I was on the basketball team, and I made it all the way to our first scrimmage, and we went on the road, and I got in the game for about 40 seconds, got one shot. I was so nervous, you know, threw up a brick, and on the way back, the bus ride back, it just kind of dawned on me that, man, I don't know, this is going to work out. I was never a quitter, but I was just like trying to be honest with myself and say, am I going to waste my time doing this when I could focus on baseball? Yeah. And I really had never really lifted weights until I got to college.
Yeah.
And so I really focused on baseball. I had a good freshman year at Carl Albert. I think I hit like 330 or something. And then and my next year, I had a great year. I hit like 430. Nice. And, hit for some power. And our team made it farther than our college had ever made it before. And, then I started. It was funny because Coach Mark Pollard at Carl Albert called me in his office one day, and he was always a funny guy, joking around most of the time, and he was actually serious this time. And he goes, "I want to talk to you about something." I said, "What's that, Coach?" And he goes, "I think you're a year away." I said, "From what?" And he goes, "From getting drafted." And I said, "By the Army?" And he goes, "No, you idiot, by professional baseball." And I was like, "Come on, Coach, you're crazy." I had grown up in the Bay Area idolizing, Willie Mays and all these major leaguers and the Oakland A's, and went to games all the time. And it's like, I never even thought in the million years that I could have an opportunity to be that good. And so I really didn't think that either when I went to Southeastern. Yeah. But Southeastern, I set, my junior year, I hit like 388, and my senior year, I hit 452 and set the school record in batting average. Nice. And Southeastern's had a great program over the years. They've had major leaguers and, national championships. And for NAIA school, they were one of the top schools in the country.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it's still at that point, I really didn't realize that I could have a chance. I was kind of thinking it was about time to get a job and move on.
Yeah.
But then I go to this trial camp, and, man, everything changed.
Wow. Yeah, so you've always been able to hit. Where did that come from? How did you come up with your process? Did a coach get a hold of you, or was it all just simply going in the backyard and playing some ball?
I did. First off, I developed, I think, great hand-eye coordination just playing wiffle ball nonstop. A wiffle ball, you can't throw a wiffle ball straight. That thing is diving, dipping, and curving, and my cousin and I got pretty good at it, man. We could throw that thing and, be pretty accurate. And I think that's how I really developed my ability to hit. But I never really overcomplicated it. For me, it was just seeing the ball and hitting it. And I always looked for a fastball, and just tried to hit it hard, not necessarily, any like pull the ball or hit it the other way. I just tried to hit it hard. And over the years that just kept working for me, was looking for a fastball. I'm a little guy. They're going to try and, even if I hit it good, it's not going to be a home run most times. So these guys will challenge you. Well, if they're challenging you, you better be able to hit their fastball, or you're not going to last very long.
Right. So now you're playing professional baseball. When I go back and look at your minor league numbers, you put up some good numbers, but what was that like physically, mentally, and emotionally? Talking specifically about your very first year of pro ball.
The first year was horrible. I hated it. I wanted to quit. That was miserable. We were in Butte, Montana, living in a college dorm at Montana Tech. Butte was not a very exciting town, to say the least. And, I was kind of like the backup second baseman. The guy ahead of me was a higher round draft pick who was a really good hitter. And so, I had a rough stretch. When you play in a short season and you have a big prolonged slump, it's kind of hard to hit, to fix your numbers by the end of the year, but I had an over 37 my first year. And I think I had less than 200 at bats the whole season and still hit 286. But a lot of guys in that league were hitting 350, 360, So, but by the end of the year, I was a starting second baseman. We had made the playoffs, and by the end of the year, I'd won the job. Going into the next year in the spring training, my first spring training, I did really well, but I went to my first full season in Gastonia as the backup second baseman, behind the same guy who was ahead of me at Butte, Joey Wardlow. And in the first, this is kind of like I don't know if it's just fate or what, but Joey Wardlow, his first game of the season, takes a throw down to second base and breaks the tip of his finger. So now I'm thrust into the starting lineup, and I led the league in batting. You know, and just kind of like things just started falling into place. And next year, and you know, Port Charlotte, I had a good year, but Port Charlotte, that Florida State league is a tough league to hit in, and that, you know, I had like 272 or something like that, and you know, didn't have like great numbers, no power numbers at all, because the ballparks are basically all the spring training parks of the big leagues. You know, they're 410 to center, 370 the gap. You know, I couldn't hit the ball out, and it's humid, and the ball didn't carry, and so, you know, I think I hit one home run in that league. You know, but when I got to Tulsa, it was you know, Tulsa was a big turning point for me, and for the Drillers. You know, I started out. Once I got to Double A, I realized that now I was playing against better and better players. You could really tell. Balls that were hits for in A ball were not hits in Double A. You know, the balls in the gaps were getting run down. Balls that I was getting through the infield, guys were making plays on them, and I was scuffling, man. After like 2 months, I think I was hitting about 220 or 230, and I thought, man, maybe this is it. You know, you never know, but you don't want to admit that maybe you've reached the you know, you topped out. And so it was kind of funny. We had a game in Wichita, and my roommate, Rick Rona, Tulsa boy, and I were down in the hotel atrium area. It's one of those enclosed hotels with a pool in the middle. And we're playing wiffle ball or tape ball, and we're using like a broom handle and a, you know, taped up ball. And it's like really dark in there. And I'm imitating like Ruben Sierra and Juan Gonzalez and these Rangers stars at the time. And they all hit with a huge leg kick, you know, which I didn't hit like that. And so I was imitating them and killing the ball. And Rona goes, "Why don't you hit like that in a game?" I said, he goes, "What do you have to lose?" I was like, "All right, dude, why not?" So the next day we have a game, and it's one of those rainy days, so we don't have a chance to go on the field BP. So I don't have a chance to work at my new hitting style that I'm just going to start with the next day. So I go in, and I'm standing now. I used to have like a little crouch down, kind of a wider stance, and now I'm standing upright, kind of like Steve Garvey. And if the pitcher starts his windup, I raise my left leg, my front leg up in the air about a foot and put it back down. I mean, without any practice. And I went 1 for 4 my first game, but I hit a home run foul. And I was like, man, I couldn't even get close to hitting a home run before. And I just stuck with it. And the Rangers didn't do anything. They let me do it. And I went from hitting 230 after probably 2 months to leading our team in 10 or 11 offensive categories in Double A. Hit over 300 and made the All-Star team. Well, I actually didn't make the All-Star team. I was a replacement because somebody got hurt, and I didn't want to go. I had a baseball camp set up in Panama where I was going to make $300, you know, during the All-Star break, and I was making $1,200 a month in Double A. So I told my agent, I said, man, I'm not going to go to the All-Star game. So I got a camp set up. He goes, no, you have to go. So I was like, all right. I reluctantly went and went 4 for 5 and was MVP of the All-Star game. You know, it's like, man, everything's happening. And then I'm like, I want to go play winter ball. I heard about winter ball as a chance to advance your career. So I go to Venezuela, hit 315 in Venezuela. I'm voted most popular player in Venezuela. I freaking make the All-Star team, and the Rangers put me on the 40-man roster. Now I'm like, oh man, this happened, and all this stuff is happening, you know. But it's all because I just kept hitting, you know, and you know, and I learned that as a young age, man. And I just never overcomplicated it. Never thought too much about it. I just went out and did it.
Yeah, you know, I'm curious, you know, what you've learned in terms of the swing and hitting. You know, if you go on social media, you're going to see some crazy stuff. And And I don't know, man. It's hard to say that any of it's wrong, but there's stuff out there that seems contradictory to what we are trying to accomplish. But with that, what are your thoughts, on the whole? We're just keeping it simple, and then what we tend to see of what people are experimenting with.
It drives me crazy. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I've actually had a few Twitter battles with people over it just because I kind of poke fun at it,
Yeah.
When people who never played now say this is the way to do things, it bothers me. And I don't believe that you have to have played the game to be a great coach. I think, but a high percentage of the best coaches played at least some level of baseball.
Yeah.
And to go out there, and I see these videos of these kids with PVC pipes, and they're like abbreviated swings and swinging up, and it's like, man, I don't understand how this is going to help. Maybe if you're Aaron Judge and you're 6'7", 270, you can lift the ball the other way. But if you're 5'9", 160 pounds, that's just fly ball after fly ball after fly ball. And I think a lot of it is like, we're trying to do a cookie cutter approach where we're trying to teach everybody to do it the same way. Well, everybody's different. You look at the top 20 home run hitters of all time. Not one of them hits like anybody else.
Right.
So why are we now trying to teach everybody that there's one way to do it, and you have to, to lift the ball. You have to have this type of degree of launch angle and exit velocity. I promise you, my exit velocity was probably below 80 on most of the balls I hit. Right. It didn't matter how hard I hit it. I was trying to hit it where nobody was standing.
Right.
Right. Now it's like we judge by, these kids, they have to have a certain exit velocity by the time they're in this grade, or they're only going to be able to play in high school or JUCO or NAIA. And I think it's a joke. I think, look at Jose Altuve. I know he's wrapped up in all this mess with the Astros right now, but I mean, this dude was told to leave the first tryout camp he ever went to.
Yeah.
Because he was too small and not strong enough. And look at him now. I mean, dude's perennial MVP candidate, a batting title. And you think exit velocity and launch angle is important to Jose Altuve?
Right.
No way.
Right.
So, I mean, I just think it really does get under my skin to see. It really bothers me to see parents who are trying to turn their young kids into big leaguers, I think, because they see the money that they could potentially make, and send them to hitting coaches who are failed baseball players.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, I'm there. I'm there with you, man. All this stuff that we're seeing, really that stuff, it's a swing, and then there's hitting. So let's talk, for the people that are listening, let's talk about the hitting side of things and what that really is. There's the swing and then there's hitting. What is hitting?
Yeah, I don't. Some people are blessed with a beautiful swing. Ken Griffey Jr., Rafael Palmeiro. These guys just had beautiful, graceful swings. And to me, the baseball swing was more of a short and quick, kind of a violent movement. And it doesn't matter. Like I said before, everybody has different swings. My approach when I was hitting was more important than how my swing looked. Okay, I went up to home plate and I had a plan. My plan was I would first look and see where everybody was playing me. If the third baseman was back and was giving me a hit in the right situation, I'd bunt. And a lot of times if the third baseman was in and I knew I was going to take a pitch, I would fake a bunt just to try and bring him in a step or two. And I was always constantly watching where they were playing me. If they're playing me to go the other way, I'm going to try to pull one in the hole. So I was always thinking, but I always looked for a fastball, no matter who I was facing. I was facing a knuckleball pitcher like Tim Wakefield. I looked for a fastball because that's the pitch I wanted to hit. Why should I look for a pitch that he might throw that I don't want to hit? I usually took off-speed pitches until I had two strikes because I was confident that I could still make contact with two strikes. So I would look fastball, try and hit it hard on a line or on the ground. And once I got behind in the count, two strikes, I would still think fastball, but I was a right-handed hitter, so I would think if you throw me your best fastball, I'm going to hit it to right center field. And that would allow me to stay back enough if they threw me an off-speed pitch. And I just try to battle and put it in play.
Yeah, Jeff, I really like how you mentioned that you took what the defense gave you. When you when you look around, guys will have, it seems like, a generic plan, and this is what I want to do each time I go to the plate, and not make the adjustment based on what the defense or what the pitcher is giving you. So I love that you brought up that. I love that you brought that up. You're reading the defense and helping you developing your game plan.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned. I know baseball's tinkering with a lot of the rules of the game, which I'm not a fan of either. But outlining the shift. How can we say that you can't play a player in a certain position on the field? Because guys are incapable of adjusting. The guys are too stubborn to try to hit the ball the other way because there's three guys on the right side of second base. I don't understand that mentality at all. And they shifted on Ted Williams back in the day. Did he complain about it? No. He'd either hit it through the shift or go the other way, and you have to be able to adjust. That's the thing about baseball is there's way more talented guys than me that never made it because they couldn't adjust. They couldn't take what the other team gave them, and especially a guy like me that I'm not just going to go up there and hit it over guys' heads. I got to hit it where somebody's not standing. So I had to make sure especially my bread and butter was the hit and run, because I can make contact, and I would watch the middle infielders to see who was covering the base. And I would, being a middle infielder, I knew where I would play in certain situations. And if I see the second baseman shifted over closer to first base, I would know that most likely they think I'm going to go the other way and the shortstop is going to cover second. Well, all I have to do is hit a 10 hopper to shortstop on a hit and run, and he's going to be standing at second base. And actually it got to the point, the hit and run I was so good at it that I went to Kevin Kennedy when he was my manager with the Red Sox. And I asked him if he would let me put on my own hit and run. Normally the manager will signal the third base coach. He'll give the hitter the hit and run sign and the guy on first base or first and second. Then the hit and run's on. Well, he allowed me to put on my own hit and run because I told him every time I have a runner on first or first and second, less than 2 outs, I want to hit and run. And he let me do it. So I had a sign, where I would kind of, I think I'd like grab my cup I'd grab my cup, kind of glancing down at first base, and the guy at first base would touch his helmet, and he would know, or I would know that he has to sign, and now this next pitch is a hit and run. I probably did it, and when I went to the Red Sox in '96, I bet I did it successfully 30 times.
Nice.
And honest to goodness, I'm the only player that I've ever talked to that was allowed to do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure some other guys have, but I just knew that's what I was, a ground ball hitter. A runner on first or first and second, when you're a ground ball hitter, is a double play situation every time. So I wanted to get the infielders moving because I was trying to hit a ground ball anyway.
So what count did you prefer over others, or was there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. 1-0, 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 3-1 every time. I wanted the runner going. Because if it was a ball, I was going to let it go, and if it was a strike, I was going to put it in play.
Very cool. You mentioned your approach a little bit. Let's talk about your routine. What would your routine look like in the dugout, on deck, and in the batter box?
Well, I would, on deck, I had a certain routine. I did it, swung my bat 3 ways, 1 way. I always had to have a donut or a weight on my bat. And I would, the whole time I'm watching the pitcher, I'm watching the infielders. I was really, during the game, man, I was tunnel vision. I wasn't looking in the stands to see, there was a pretty girl above the dugout. I was watching the game. That was the 3 hours. I owed it to my team and myself to focus 100% during that time. And when I got to home plate, I knew what my plan was. I mean, I can honestly say not every single time, but a high percentage, probably 98% of the time, I knew what I was trying to do in this situation.
Very cool. Jeff, I wanted to ask you, if you play this game long enough, you are going to have your fair share of the slump. What would your process of dealing with, going through that period of slump? And what advice do you have for kids that are going through them and mainly trying to deal with it and managing it? So what advice would you have for kids?
Yeah, I mean, I had some slumps. Everybody does. You play long enough, you can have more than anybody else.
Right.
But and they sure are frustrating, and sometimes you just don't know what you're doing wrong. And, hopefully you have a hitting coach or somebody to help you, tell you. And because we didn't really have video like they do now. We had VCR tapes and then CDs that we could look at and notice that maybe your hands are dropping or maybe your shoulders flying out or you're stepping in the bucket or something. But man, you just kind of had to work through it. And for me, it wasn't going in the cage and for an hour and hitting. It was, to me, it's more quality over quantity. So I would go in there, maybe hit some balls off the tee or hit some soft toss. And my focus was always up the middle. Whenever I could stay back and hit the ball up the middle, I would get back on track and try and keep the ball out of the air, which is total opposite of what they do now. Now they're trying to hit the ball in the air. I knew if I was getting under the ball that I was either dropping my hand or pulling off the ball. And so I would just focus on hitting a line drive or a hard ground ball up the middle or the other way. And that way I would know I was in the right position.
Yeah, so I want to pick your mind a little bit on studying and reading the pitcher. What do we watch and what do we study? We tell a lot of the younger kids, and a lot of times they get overwhelmed with the process because they don't really know what they're looking at. So what can they do to kind of start the process? What are we looking for as far as reading and studying the pitcher?
Yeah, you just have to watch, you have to watch how he pitches the other guys.
Yeah.
Which he's going to, a guy's going to pitch me different than he's going to pitch Juan Gonzalez or Ruben Sierra. I knew, being my size, that they were going to come after me most often with fastballs.
Yeah.
The one thing they would do to me when I was having a lot of success was they would try to pitch me backwards. They would start off with off speed, and then, knowing that I like to hit the ball the other way, then they would try to pound me in with fastballs. And that was a tough adjustment. I mean, I had to battle, but most of the guys would pitch me. They did me a favor when they pitched me away. I don't know why they did so often, but that's what I wanted. But I mean, there's some other nuances that I would look at too. I would look how the pitcher's gripping the baseball, and in his warm-up pitches, I would see if he's got a 2-seam grip or a 4-seam grip for a fastball. I would see if he's spiking his finger for a curveball or if he is throwing a split or a changeup. And actually, one time I was facing, I was lucky enough to face Greg Maddux. Mm-hmm. That he started against us when I was with the Red Sox, and I was watching him warm up in between innings, and I was watching how he gripped. He had a cutter, little cut fastball. He wasn't going to overpower you. He was going to outsmart you. And so I watched his grip. He would grip the ball, put it in his glove, and then signal a cutter or a changeup. And I would watch him. So when I was facing him, I saw him get his grip on his cutter, put his ball in his glove, and he threw me a cutter. I had a line drive base hit to right field. And it was just, I would watch when the pitcher's getting the signs and he leaned over and he's got the ball behind his back. I would watch how he gripped it. And then look when he brought it up to his glove and see if he moved it or not in his glove. And if he didn't, I figured he was throwing the pitch so he had the grip before he put it in his glove. Just little things like that. I was always looking for, and I had to think my way through my career because I wasn't the most physically gifted player. So I had to outsmart the competition.
Yeah, you always talk to kids about watching and studying the game. And it's funny when people suggest that, you're getting them to think too much, and really it's just paying attention and gathering as much information as possible so you can get an advantage. Because I mean, hitting's hard.
Yeah, and baseball, I mean, it's tough for kids because they're not used to failing. You know, the kids that go on to high school and college, they have success when they're young. So now that the competition is better, you're going to fail more. I mean, baseball, you know, they say it all the time. Baseball is a game of failure. You have to be able to deal with that failure, you know, and just have a short memory and, you know, forget about that last at bat or that last error you made and move on. And a lot of kids have trouble with that. And, you know, you have to be able to deal with that to keep moving on in this game.
Yeah, when did you figure that whole process out? You know, it's hard, and you know you're sitting here going, "Man, this is hard. I've got to have a short-term memory. And I've got to deal with my failure." So when did this process start for you?
I probably my first year of pro ball, because I mean I really didn't struggle in college and high school.
Yeah, true.
You know, I was pretty successful. But my first year going 0 for 37, man, that was over about a 2-week period. That was rough.
Yeah.
You know, that was not any fun. And then, I guess when I was in AA in Tulsa, the first 2 months of the season were pretty tough because I couldn't figure out why I was failing all of a sudden. And, if it wasn't for me coming up with the crazy idea, Rick Rona coming up with the crazy idea of a leg kick, I might not have made it past AA, you know. And so it's kind of like a lucky circumstance or a fluke deal that, you know, turned everything around for me. And, but slumps happen in baseball, man. I mean, slumps happen in all sports. You know, you see guys go through stretches in basketball where they can't hit a shot, and you just got to keep practicing and keep working. And it's really tough to maintain confidence, which is the key element to me to be successful in sports. If you can't maintain confidence, even though you're struggling, man, it's hard to make it.
Yeah, how do you manage that? You know, they're always having the belief and the confidence in what you were doing.
I think you just have to hold on. Someone's playing basketball in here now. Oh, that's the gym. You just have to believe in yourself, and I think it's through hard work and practice that, you know, you have to believe in yourself, or you're not going to be successful at anything in life, really.
Right.
And so you just gotta stick with it, and hopefully you find a way to make it. But I would, you know, like I said earlier, there's just so many players that I played with and against in my career that were more talented. Sorry, man. Were more talented than me, that just for whatever reason they just couldn't get. You know, the lights were too bright, and they didn't believe in themselves, and they ended up not making it.
Right. So you had several years where you were out for the entire year due to injuries. What is that like physically, mentally, and emotionally? You know, you're playing, you get to the big league, which is hard enough, and then you get hurt and you're out for the year. What's going through your mind at that time?
It was, you know, I had Rangers Rookie of the Year my first year. In that off season of playing basketball, I tear my ACL. Yeah, and I'd never really had any serious injuries my whole life. You pulled a muscle here and there, but I mean that was tough, and it was just like, man, I finally get here, and now I'm going to miss a whole season. And, I mean, just kept working and rehabbed, and, you know, I kind of had to start over. I had a good spring training. The next spring training, they sent me to the minor leagues to start the season. And so I had to work my way back up. I came up, I hit 327 that year. Then I go to Boston, you know, do really well in Boston, sign a 3-year contract, and tear my other ACL in spring training. So, but I knew the process of, you know, rehabbing, because I'd done it already. And I knew that if I worked hard, I could still come back. And actually, the crazy thing is, after tearing both of my ACLs, I was actually faster than I was before. And I think it's just the specific training you do for each, all these little muscles and things like that you don't normally think about training. And I actually got, I did really well after tearing my ACL a second time. But then I kind of had to start over again. The Red Sox had already signed a second baseman, so I had to work my way back through that too. So those are frustrating years, for sure.
Yeah, what that like mentally and emotionally? Have you had times where, you felt something, or you had a little setback, or you got a little tired with the rehab and kind of having some self doubt? What was that like?
Yeah, I never had that thought. I
Really?
swear to you, I didn't.
Yeah.
No, I was disappointed. I mean, in spring training, I'm going into the season, I'm the leadoff hitter and the starting second baseman for the Boston Red Sox. And a week into spring training, I'm out for the year. That was mentally, that was tough mentally, but I just figured, I had no other choice but to work my way back. You kind of, it's just natural to think, why me? But I still got paid, to play, to rehab. The most frustrating part is you feel like you're letting the team down and you're not part of the team. Even though you're there with the guys, you're not out in the trenches with them. You're in the training room, which when I was playing, I tried to stay out of the training room. It's almost like a sign of weakness that, we used to make fun of the guys that were always in the training room. So even if I had a little nick here and there, I would try and stay out of the training room because I didn't want people to think I was soft. It was like a manly thing. Oh man, you're just a little sissy. You're in the training room getting ice after every game, So I tried to avoid the training room, but it was tough when there was nowhere else I could be except in the training room trying to fix my body.
Yeah. I want to talk a little middle infield. You played some outfield as well, but I want to pick your mind on middle infielder. What the ability, capability, and the mindset needed for a middle infielder?
Well, you have to have good hands, obviously, and you have to have quick feet, agility, but you have to think.
Yeah.
You have to be able to think because, I played some outfields, and basically in an outfield, you stand out there and try to stay ready, but it's kind of boring.
Right.
It's not like middle infield. Every pitch is important. I got to know what the sign is from the catcher to the pitcher. If it's a power hitting right-handed hitter, if he's going to pull an off-speed pitch, or I got to relay the signs to the shortstop. I got to let the first baseman know if it's an off-speed pitch, because this guy might pull the ball or whatever. And it's just every pitch of a game. It's just, you can never take a pitch off, because that could be the one pitch that you're not ready. You're on your heels and the guy hits the ball through the hole that could, give their team the win. So you can never stop thinking, keep your head up. I remember one time in Tulsa, actually it was Oklahoma City. It was really funny because we had a bunch of injuries to outfielders, and it was Tulsa actually. And Rick Rona, who was a catcher, was going to play the outfield. And he told me, he says, hey, let me know, because I was playing second. He's playing right. He says, let me know what the pitch is. So I don't know how many pitches are in a game, probably 150 pitches a lot of times. And so every pitch I had to get the sign from the catcher, relay that message to the shortstop if there was a runner on first, relay the message to the first baseman if it's an off-speed pitch, and then behind my back give Rick Rona a sign in right field on what the pitch was. That's mentally taxing for a 3-hour baseball game.
Right.
So, you just can never take a pitch off. And I took pride in that. It was defense was more challenging for me than hitting, because I felt like I had to always be concentrating. I wasn't the overly gifted infielder, but I turned myself into a good infielder just by working at it.
Yeah, so pay attention. What about reading the hitter? Sure, you have you get to a certain level, you have scouting reports, but something may be off for that guy on that day. So what are you looking for when it comes in terms of reading the hitters?
Well, I mean, when I was in the big leagues, and I knew a lot of the who the hitters were. I knew if they were pull hitters. I knew if they hit the ball the other way. You can also tell by watching the guys take a swing sometimes where they foul the ball off or if they're late. Where you anticipate them hitting the ball, and I would always try to cheat over half a step or a step on certain guys. And I can't stress enough just the watching and paying attention to every little minute detail to help me be in the right position when they do hit the ball. And it's tougher when you're playing against people like in the minor leagues that you may have never played against before. But generally you think, okay, the 3-hole hitter is going to be a power hitter. The 4-hole hitter is going to be a power hitter. The first 2 hitters are going to be guys that, can hit the ball the other way. The catcher is going to be slow. I have more time. Just over time, you just get that stuff ingrained in your mind that, all right, well, this guy's hitting 3-hole for a reason. He probably can hit. He probably can pull the ball. If he's got a bunch of home runs, he's probably pulling the ball. So I might cheat over and expect him to, pull the ball a little bit more than maybe the 7 or 8-hole hitter.
There you go. Paying attention. And this, yeah. I talked to some other guys that got to the level that you did too. And, you guys always talk about being mentally exhausted after game. The younger guys, the younger kids, don't understand that.
No, and I actually helped coach a select team this summer a little bit, and we had a game, and one of the kids after his at bat, I was like, "Do you look at the game situation before you step to the plate?" He's like, "No, not really." I was like, "How can you not look?
Yeah.
How do you not know? How are you going to be prepared? If there's a runner on third base with 1 out, you can hit a ground ball up the middle, you get an RBI. But how do you not know that when you step in the box? You need to start thinking about that stuff before you step in the box.
Right.
It's not just going up there and trying to hit a home run every time."
Right. Yeah. No. I mean,
and he wasn't doing well for that reason.
Yeah.
And he was a very talented player.
Yeah.
But you just got to have the mindset.
Yeah, there needs to be. I think there needs to be a coach at the end of every dugout, and as the hitter prepared to get on deck, that player needs to mentally check in, and they need to be able to relay to his coach what his approach plan, and just to get his mind in the right spot. And again, his plan and his approach might change when he gets to the plate, but at least he's starting the thought process and getting ready to hit. If the thought process doesn't happen, then it's not going to happen.
If it's just starting by the time you step in the box, it's too late.
Yeah.
I have a funny story. I was playing with the Red Sox, and it was the last month of the season, and we had Kevin Kennedy was our manager, and he invited Maury Wills to be our guest coach for the last month of the season. Maury Wills is a great base stealer in his career, and so he comes in there and he starts talking to all those guys who are steal bases and teaching us things about you don't wait till you get to first base to try and read the pitcher. You should already have him figured out by the time you get on first base, because you're going to waste 2 or 3 pitches trying to figure out his move and everything and seeing how long it takes for him to get rid of the ball. And by that time, somebody's already hit the ball. It's too late. So you have to have that figured out. And I'd never really been taught that. In the last month of the season, I stole 9 for 9 bases in the last month just because he was there. So why isn't that guy there every day? It makes you wonder, right? What would happen if he'd have been there the whole season? I sold, I think, 19 bases that year, and I sold 9 in 1 month. I sold 10 over the other 5. I could have probably sold 40 that year if he was there full time.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. Being on base, what do you got there? The goal is obviously to advance 90 feet and score. But what's the mindset, and what are you watching?
When you get to first base, the first thing you got to do is check where all your outfielders are. Okay? Yep. See if, and then, it doesn't take long to glance around the field to see where everybody's playing.
Right.
That way if the center fielder is shaded over to the left and a ball's hitting right center, I know I'm at least getting to third. I don't have to look at my third base coach.
Right.
The best base runner, one of the best base runners I ever played with was Larry Walker. He just got into the Hall of Fame, and he wasn't a super fast guy, but he was an intelligent base runner. And you have to look at all those things. You have to take the extra base. You have to be ready. And a lot of that is stuff that you learn before the ball is hit.
Yeah.
So you don't have to rely on the coaches. The best base runners don't even have to look at their coaches unless it's a ball behind them in the gap, or, if they're going to try and send you on a from second to score on a base hit where maybe the right fielder's got a great arm and you have to rely on your coach to stop you. But most of that stuff is you should already know what you're going to do if a ball's hit in this situation. If the ball's hit in this part of the field, I know I'm going to third base. Or I know if it's right center, the center fielder has a weak arm, and I should be able to score on a ball in the gap. But that's all. And just like everything else, it's just preparation, knowing what you're going to do before the ball is hit to you, or your teammate hits the ball in the gap. You already have it in your mind what you're going to do before it happens.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time, the preparation and the paying attention part. This game is tough, and so any information that you can get to help you get an advantage, it's huge. And I don't understand why guys wouldn't want to do that, other than they just don't know or don't know what they're looking at. But for the most part, I hear people telling me that I'm getting these kids thinking too much when it's funny.
It's very hard, and I think part of the problem with the kids coming up today is they spend their summers playing for select teams. Well, they don't practice. They play on the weekends. You play 4 or 5 games on the weekend. You don't spend 2 or 3 days at practice working on stuff. So it's hard to learn that stuff in the game situation all the time. Whereas I would play 50 or 60 games in the summertime for my, summer league team. And we just play, and you learn through trial and error on, what to do in certain situations. And I think a lot of that is lost now with kids playing, 4 or 5 games on the weekend for a select or a travel team. And then they don't practice the rest of the week. They go to maybe their pitching coach or their hitting coach once or twice a week. And, for 45 minutes, and their parents pay $75 for them to take 100 swings and do the same thing over and over. Well, anybody can hit it in batting practice. There's some batting practice Hall of Famers that never made the big leagues. You throw that ball right down the middle every time. They got that groove swing and they can hit it. But what happens when that ball's sinking or cutting or diving? It's a lot different. And I think it's almost like you watch golfers. They talk about these golfers' beautiful swings. Well, it doesn't matter if how pretty your swing is. My swing wasn't pretty, but I hit the ball hard and made contact. And I think too much emphasis is put on having this pretty swing and having it at this certain angle and things like that. And I think that's hurting the game, in my opinion.
Jeff, this has been great. Let's wrap up with a few more questions. When you retired from being a professional athlete and just become a regular civilian, what is that like? A lot of guys struggle to walk away from the game, and really most of the time the game tells you it's done with you. So how did you deal with that process?
It's a transition. I can tell you that. I mean, it's no accident that a lot of professional athletes get divorced when their careers are over, because they're used to being gone 50% of the time, if not more. And so it's tough. And I think the hardest part for me was I'm so competitive that the competition was gone, and I had to find other things in my life, outlets in my life, to compensate for that being gone just overnight. You one day you're going to the field every day knowing you're going to be, in a competitive situation, and the next day it's all gone and it's not coming back. So for me, I picked up some hobbies. I started playing golf more. I still, to this day, play basketball 2 or 3 times a week with a bunch of young guys just to get that competition. I thrive on the competition, So but it's tough for athletes, man. You see, they're used to being in the spotlight, and now all of a sudden they're just a normal guy, and people aren't yelling at you for your autograph, and you realize quickly that you're just a regular person now.
Yeah. Now you do agent work now, right? Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
What's that like? What just for the people that are listening who maybe not, you don't have to elaborate, but what maybe the scope of that what you're doing.
Well, I represent amateur and professional athletes in baseball only, and it's cutthroat business. I got into it right after I retired, and because I wanted to stay in the game. I didn't want to go ride buses in the minor leagues and be a coach, and I didn't want to be away from home, and it was something I could do at home. But it's a nasty business.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm consider myself a nice guy, and it's kind of a really tough business for someone who's not going to go behind and people's backs and be dishonest and steal clients. And unfortunately, a lot of the bigger agencies that are successful, they have no problem with that.
Right.
But I can't look you in the face and shake your hand and then call your client when I get back to my room.
Right.
I just can't do that. And that's a lot of what happens in my industry.
That sucks.
It does. That's the bad part of it. It's just like, I'm too nice of a guy to be doing this job, but but then when one of your clients, makes it to the big leagues, man, it feels like you made it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have one of my clients this year. I think it's his year. Finally, after 7 years after high school and minor leagues, I mean, he's had success and kept getting better and better and maturing. And I think this is finally the year. So when he gets called up, man, it's going to feel like I'm getting called up,
Awesome. Well, Jeff, I don't want to take up too more of your time. I really we do appreciate your time, but I'd love to ask one last thing. What would be kind of, one last, what, if you were me interviewing you, what would you have asked that I didn't ask?
Well, you haven't asked me about the cheating stuff.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's a black eye for baseball.
Yeah.
I can honestly say that I think a lot of the blame goes on Major League Baseball for allowing the technology to be such an integral part of baseball now.
Yeah.
The iPads in the dugouts and monitors behind the dugout. I mean, we always use the video equipment just to go back and look at why we did, how we, when we were successful, what we were doing, when we were failing, what we were doing wrong. And I think they just made it too easy for guys. And we bring in a lot of people in the game now that aren't baseball people.
Yeah.
And they don't know the unwritten rules of baseball because they didn't play. We knew, hey, if I steal your signs, if I'm at second base and I get your signs from the catcher and I relay it to my hitter, that's fair game. You have to do a better job of disguising your signs. Okay. But what happened this year this year with or last year with the Red Sox and the year before with the Astros, that goes against everything that we ever learned. That's beyond the rules,
Yeah.
beyond what's allowed, and from the time I came up. And I think we just made it easy by allowing all this electronic equipment and cameras everywhere and expected guys who don't know the unwritten rules of baseball to abide by those rules.
Yeah.
And obviously they didn't. And look what's happened.
Yeah.
People losing their jobs that had been in baseball for their whole lives.
Yeah.
Because I guess they couldn't resist the temptation to have an edge. We were always trying to have an edge. I mean,
Sure.
The saying in baseball is forever has been, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Right.
But there was a line that
Yeah.
you couldn't cross, and, in my opinion, the steroids was, a line you shouldn't have crossed. And now the sign stealing and relaying it real time to hitters is a line that shouldn't have been crossed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for people who don't realize, hitting's hard, and if you know what's coming, it's a
like
little
batting
easier.
practice.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, when you see guys, like I saw some of the old video of guys on 0-2 hitting curveballs like they knew it was coming.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
Right.
You're not hitting 460-foot home runs on 0-2 curveballs. Not very often.
Right.
But I mean, the evidence is there. It happened, and you can see. I mean, and I've actually heard people, question asked was, would you rather face a guy on steroids or a guy who knows what's coming? Well, I mean, although steroids did, enhance athletes, didn't help you hit a baseball.
Right.
You had supreme confidence and probably more strength to hit a ball farther and harder, but didn't help you hit it. But
Yeah.
knowing what was coming
Yeah.
is the complete unfair advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a different game. I think people don't understand the severity of it.
No, I don't think they do either. And I mean, we'll see what's going to happen this year. I don't know. Hopefully there's new rules implemented to maybe eliminate some of this access to the electronic stuff. And we'll see how the numbers change too from guys who don't know what's coming now.
True. Yep. Well, what do you see? What do you think the future of the game can? The game's in an interesting place. The game's going to evolve. It always does, but it's kind of in an interesting place. What do you see happening?
Well, I mean, I think there's so many great young players nowadays. I just see the game progressing. Hopefully, we can get past this cheating scandal, and we can start appreciating some of the young superstars that are, all over the major leagues, and just get back to the glory of baseball. I mean, it's in my opinion, the greatest game in the world, and we have some of the best athletes in the world playing it. And let's just get back to our national pastime being, something that everybody looks up to and enjoys, and get away from all the scandalous stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Jeff, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I do appreciate your time, and again, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Jeff. I appreciate the time too, man.